And good morning. Thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. It's 10 a.m. Central Time. Each Wednesday at 10 a.m. we bring truth to you. We help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And so we're glad to be able to come to you again today. My thanks to Ryan for making everything run last week as I was out of town with the RNC. Some of you may or may not know I work with the RNC as an elected member of the National Committee. Good things happening there as well. We had some really great meetings. Alveda King met us, and she gave us a tour of the Civil Rights Museum, something I didn't know. I had heard she might join us. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I was caught off guard when I walked around the hotel and saw that vision that we've all seen in the photograph where Martin Luther King was murdered. And it was quite moving. Took me by surprise. I didn't realize that's where we were headed. I was glad it took me by surprise because it's how that took the nation by surprise as well. Alveda King was such an incredible delight. Nowhere in her voice was there anger, hatred, an "oh me" attitude for what had happened to her family, what she had seen take place in her uncle's life. And she took us to that museum, and it was quite a stirring event. And so how interesting that I had that last week, not knowing that I was going to be doing that when I'd already booked the show for today with Howard Galganov, Mychal, Massie, and Jesse Peterson joining me to talk about what's happening right here in America. I just sent out a quick reminder to folks to let them know that we were on air. You're obviously listening probably through webcast1live.com. Text your friends, tweet your friends, and let them know they can join in as well. But I didn't know when I was booking this show that I'd get a chance to talk to Alveda King, that I'd walk through the Civil Rights Museum. It was quite stirring. What Alveda didn't say, didn't promote, was bitterness, was silencing anyone, was a harshness in attitude. It was a, let's continue to work together and provide freedom and liberty for every American, or in this country at least, who wants to work for that direction. And she certainly honored God and clarified herself as a Republican, which I think is interesting in today's climate. Joining me today, right now, is a man I have not met before. And again, I think it's amusing. Someone had just sent me an email. A good friend, Alan, who's a good listener and a supporter of this show, had sent me an email from Howard Galganov. I hope I'm saying that name correctly, and has enjoyed his articles for quite some time. He had just sent one on the latest information on the Sterling case with the LA Clippers, and it's something I didn't want to do a show about, frankly. I listened to a talk show on my way in today, and the thing I hate most is when talk show hosts just continue to dwell and drain on about a conversation in their opinion. And I'm not here to give you my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We have one truth, the Holy Bible, and our founding fathers knew that that was what it was important enough to base all of our other laws, precepts on in this country. That's where our liberties come from, endowed by our Creator, inalienable rights. And so I don't plan to take it from my opinion. But when I read Howard's article, I thought, this man says it. He gets it. So I called him immediately, or texted him immediately, and asked him if he would be willing, and bless his heart, he was. I think for describing him, I would call him a Canadian cowboy, perhaps, but he's certainly undergone and faced some of the things we're now dealing with in America. As you know, Canada's just a little bit ahead of us in losing some of their rights and liberties. He's an author. He's a best-selling author. He's a talk show host, and a whole host of attributes. I'm pleased to have him join us. Howard, thank you for taking time out for us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and thanks for giving me voice to your audience.
Appreciate the article that you wrote, and for our listeners, I want to go to that article. But first, I want them to know a little bit about who you are. You had quite a talk show of yourself, 40,000 listeners, and you were silenced in Canada?
Well, it's actually closer to 185,000 listeners. There's 40,000 listeners, quarter hours tuned, and the weekly tune was a little over 185,000. But Canada is not a country that's open to conservative views. They're not open to in-your-face kind of radio as Americans are used to. Although, from what I see what's happening to your country, you're moving closer to our direction than we're moving towards yours, which is not a good thing, by the way. And, my wife and I also own a national advertising agency, so doing radio is not a livelihood for me. It was actually somewhat of a sacrifice, but a very pleasant one.
And so you're right. You're ahead of us in Canada, but you've been written up in Time Magazine, The Economist, too many other prominent news magazines and newspapers worldwide to count. But you're an active participant. You understand what's happening, and you've got a clear picture of it because I think what you've seen in Canada. So thank you for addressing this issue. And I'm going to go now to your article that you wrote on this particular issue, Phony Sanctimony. Talk to our listeners about what you mean by that, and take us through the article.
Well, the Civil War, the racial war, I should say, ended in the 60s, and the people who were most affected by it were people who cared. Most people didn't care. Well, the black community certainly cared. White liberals, to a great extent, I guess they cared. But most people weren't affected by it until it started to morph into like reverse racism. And it's very hard to say anything today that isn't going to be used against you and titled as you being a racist or whatever it is. But we have a problem throughout North America, where if somebody is acting out and somebody is not behaving the way our norms dictate, then there's a whole liberal media, and there are liberal politicians, and there are leftists, and it doesn't matter if it's race or language or culture or anything. They're going to find a way to excuse bad behavior, opposed to a conservative viewpoint where, black and white are quite distinctive. And again, I'm not talking about race. So what we see is, reverse discrimination. I am absolutely always opposed to any kind of affirmative action, whether it has to do with race in the United States or what has to do with language in Canada, for example. I'm just writing an editorial now. Outside of the province of Quebec, where the unrestricted use of the English language is against the law, and I don't say that lightly, by the way, 97% of the Canadian population is English-speaking. Yet there will never be an English politician who will become Prime Minister of Canada unless he or she is relatively fluent in French. We have affirmative action where you can't get a government job. You can't even progress in the Canadian military unless you can pass a French proficiency exam. So we have our own problems on this side of the border with affirmative action. And then you go into the United States. It always boggled my mind how people would be turned away from either employment or scholarships or even getting into a university based on their color, and not the color black or the color brown, not if you were Asian, but if you were white, right. Especially a white male. This is wrong. This discrimination is wrong no matter how you paint it. So, when this issue came up with the basketball team, and I'm watching the American media talking about it, writing about it. The first thing all the media members did, including conservative Fox News, was to spend an incredible amount of time detailing that they're not racist, that they don't believe in what Sterling did, that they have to prove something that they're not. Well, that's ridiculous. What Sterling said was horrible, but you know something? You have a benefit in the United States that sets you apart from virtually the entire world, including Canada. This is called the First Amendment. Sterling has a right to be an idiot. He has the right to say stupid things, and he has a right to his opinion. And the fact that his opinion was said in privacy and recorded without his knowledge, well, that's another issue as well. So now all of a sudden, You've got all these people who want to take his team away from him, who want to punish him, who want to ban him from going to any NBA games, who want to ban him from going into his own arena. Why? Because he said something really bad? Well, the public will take care of that. If it really offended the people, then people would stop going to his games. Not only that, the advertisers will stop paying money to buy ads on any of his boards in the arena. He would have no sponsors. He would be forced to sell. Right now, he's probably going to sell, and he'll probably get close to $1 billion for the team. So where's the punishment in that? But the bottom line is the people are being punished because the people's right to express themselves over this issue or any other issue has just been taken out of the First Amendment. So he's being punished for his thoughts that he made public. Now, I guarantee you, I look at a lot of the actors, many of the black actors, Samuel Jackson, for example, who has said horrible things about white people. I forget the name of the actor who played. I have to try to remember this. I'll come back to it in a minute. But he made a movie that he's nominated for an Academy Award. I don't know if he won it or not. But in an interview, he said, "I love doing the Django's movie," and he said, "I just love killing white people," and that was a big deal. I mean, it made a lot of the news as a funny thing. Now, imagine if a white actor would say, "I love killing black people" in the movie. It made me feel good. It was funny. It was great. Well, we have a double set of standards. Now, I'm not going to debate, racism. There is racism everywhere. I'm sure that there's no shortage of black people, and we see it in your Congress, in the Senate and the House, where many black members are saying things that they really shouldn't say that aren't true about white people or what will white people think or say. For example, you can't criticize Obama for a failed presidency because if you do, then all of a sudden you're a racist. But taking all that aside and forgetting all of that, the biggest issue is the First Amendment. It has been under attack now for years in the States, and what just happened now with the NBA is that it stripped a man's rights to a private opinion. Even if that opinion became public and he wanted to make it public, no one has the right to tell this man that he can't have an opinion. As vile as it might be, he has a right to that opinion. Years ago, there was a Nazi group in Skokie, Illinois, that wanted to march. And they insisted that they have a right to march with swastikas and the whole bit in a Jewish community. And people were outraged. They said, no, you don't have the right to do that. Well, the Nazi group went out and purposely hired a Jewish lawyer, and he fought, or they fought, against the town for the right to march. And he won the right. The Nazis won the right to march. And as I operate. I'm in partnership with Pastor Gary Bird of the M25 Mission of Hope Riders. I'm Jewish. Your listeners should know this. Pastor Gary Bird is a fundamentalist Christian. We become very close friends, and we co-organize a motorcycle ride called the Pledge Riders. And the whole idea of this is to make a pledge in various cities throughout North America of never again to a second Holocaust. We understand that racism and anti-Semitism and evil exists everywhere. We don't ignore that fact, and instead of running away from it, we face it. But once you take away legitimate free speech, the ideas of people, as repugnant as they might be, well, what you're doing is you're destroying the essence of your country. Now, I'm a Canadian. My wife and I travel to the States several times a month. We live just across the U.S.-Canada border. And, we feel very comfortable in your country. And what I love about America is that it has always been the yardstick for the freedoms that the rest of the world wishes to measure itself by. I'll never forget Ronald Reagan's shining city on top of that hill. It exemplified what America was, what America has always been. So as a Canadian, I look to the United States for strength. I look to the United States for a moral compass. And it's gone. It hasn't. This is not just Obama, by the way. This has been slipping away for years, slipping away under multiple presidents, including the Bushes. You know, it's one thing to talk the talk. It's another thing to stand tall and say, we will fight to the death for the freedoms that made this country so great.
That's what we used to say, Howard. We used to say, I disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for you to have the right to say it. We're not hearing that anymore. And I want to go back to one thing. I know you mentioned that he could still sell his team for $1 million. So where's the punishment? Well, there's still quite a bit of punishment when the team could be worth quite a bit more. What I'm seeing.
No, I didn't say $1 million. I said $1 billion with a B.
But even beyond that, the team has been devalued just since this started, and there is some talk that this may have been a Samson Delilah type situation. If you remember that story from the Bible, Delilah was used to get to Samson, to get to his strength, to break him down. And it would certainly appear, since this female in this story somehow taped it, someone got it to TMZ. It was not that he said it publicly. He said it in the privacy of his own home. And if you listen to the whole tape, and I can post that on our chat line here for our listeners, if you listen to the link from the whole conversation, it was obvious that this was one of those lovers' quarrels. There was jealousy involved, and it was almost pathetic, as you heard him saying, I don't want to fight. Why are you fighting? Why do you keep saying this?
Tamara, I don't subscribe to conspiracies. You might be right, or the people who are making this suggestion might be right. I think it's a lot simpler than that. I think that the guy just said what he said, and he said other things in the past as well that were pretty much as vile. He doesn't have a great reputation as a humanitarian, but that doesn't take away his right to speak. Now, even forgetting about a private conversation, he can say it in public. He has that right. You know, you have soldiers who've died overseas fighting for the rights of other people to say what they wish. And now all of a sudden in America, you've got to sort of sugarcoat every word that comes out of your mouth and worry about who might hear it or who might be offended by it. Frankly, I don't care. I say things all the time. I don't care. I will literally fight to my grave for my right to express myself. I've just gone through a language war that cost me out of pocket $125,000. The Supreme Court would now this fight, by the way, I'm writing about this now. It was very simple. In Canada, there's affirmative action for the French language, and in the province of Ontario, where I live, which has a French population of just 4%, in some communities, it's against the law to put up an English-only sign. It has to be bilingual. Well, that's not freedom of expression. Our Charter of Rights and Freedom says we can express ourselves any way we want without hindrance. Well, we can't because some appointed judge decided, no, there has to be French beside it. So, you know, the penalty against me, by the way, is $300,000. So we went to various levels of court, right up to the Supreme Court, that doesn't want to touch us because they don't want to have to make a decision. So freedom of expression is to me, it is the essence of a democracy. And you don't have a democracy. You have a republic, which is even better. So I look at all these things, and I see what's happening in your country, whether it's with the IRS or whether it's with the NSA or whether it's with the Justice Department or the FBI, spying on people like James Rosen, a journalist, going after the Tea Party through the IRS to make sure that they can't express themselves. You know, what the IRS does goes beyond just restricting the rights of somebody to organize. It's an absolute attack on the First Amendment. And I don't see your country rushing to bar the gates to the barbarians. I don't see it happening. I don't see people on either side of the Great Divide who are so outraged by this that they're marching by the millions to the Justice Department to tell Eric Holder where to get off.
Well, that's because we've been so beaten down in the media. People are afraid. You see them all about this subject broaching. The very first thing out of their mouth is, I don't agree with what he said. And the first thing they do is take apart the character, and whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, I don't know. I don't know him. I don't care. You have a right to own a business in this country. And as you say, Howard, people will determine, the dollar will determine. And we need to remember that as Americans, the liberty should stay with us in our pockets, how we spend those dollars or don't spend those dollars. But to have an organization, can they legally even do that? I'm so curious. How can the Clippers, how can the NBA say that someone can or can't be part of the organization because of their thoughts and views, when a small business owner right here in Iowa can't even determine who they do business with? They're being sued. A small Mennonite couple from the Gortz House Gallery is being sued because they politely declined to do a wedding in their business, host the wedding in their business. Not just do the flowers, not just do the reception, but have the wedding inside their cathedral, their building. It's an older church building, and they bought it to keep it from being condemned in the community as a service to the community. And now they've been taken to court. Where is the justice there? Where is the consistency there when this supposed private organization can oust someone because they simply don't like something said in the privacy of his home that was made public, versus someone not being able to do something in their business privately?
You know that it's all coming apart when a kid can't set up a lemonade stand on his or her front lawn, and the authorities take it seriously. We are so overgoverned. We are overgoverned by people who we don't elect. These are people who are appointed by the people who we elect. They're bureaucrats who are nameless and faceless, and they don't give a damn. And I'm sure they stay up at night trying to dream up ways to impose themselves upon the people's freedoms. You know, I believe, and I write about this all the time, I believe that we've crossed the Rubicon, not just in the United States, but in Canada as well, and other free countries or free societies. We've crossed the line of no return, and our societies are going to collapse. We can't live like this. You know, I studied, by the way, at a rabbinical college. I studied to be a rabbi, so I'm quite well versed in the Bible, and you know, whether you're a believer or not, the Bible's a great history book, and we're reliving history. You know, if you want to know what the future is going to be, just look at the past, and we're looking at the decadence of society. We're looking at a moral outrage. We're looking at a society where ethics are almost meaningless. We're getting ahead and cheating, and getting something for nothing seems to be the most important deal. You know, but I have tremendous faith in the conservative viewpoint of most Americans. You know, last year for 9/11, my wife and I fly an American and a Canadian flag on our property, up 2 flag posts. And on 9/11, every year, we lower our flags to half-mast when the first plane struck the Twin Towers, and we leave them down till noon, and then we bring them up. And we actually light a candle that burns for 24 hours, just in memory of all those people who died. And last year, if you remember, some Muslim groups said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to have a demonstration. We're going to have a 1 million-man demonstration in Washington, D.C. On 9/11 to show the world how poorly Muslims are treated in America. And some guy, I think he was just blowing smoke, he said, yeah, well, if you can get 1 million people down, we can get 1 million motorcycles, so we're going to come down there, we're going to drown you out. Well, I took him seriously. Gary Bird of the M25, he took them seriously as well. So did others. There was no organizing group for this motorcycle initiative. Like, there's no one who said, okay, I'm in charge, and we're going to organize this, and we're going to make this happen. It was a whole bunch of individuals who turned around, and I believe 800,000 motorcycles showed up to Washington, D.C. on 9/11 this past year. I'm very proud to say that I was there. Gary Bird came in from Texas. We had people from Toronto. We came with our flags, and we came with a huge banner that we made, and we stayed on Constitution Avenue. Everybody was driven off of Constitution Avenue during this event because Obama was on his way past the Vietnam Wall. I forget where he was going to lay a wreath or something, and maybe it's the Pentagon, perhaps. But we were on Constitution Avenue, and the authorities came to us, and they said, you can stay. And we stayed there with our banner, and we had a megaphone. And for each time a plane struck an American target, we held a moment of silence. We had one of the pastors deliver a prayer. We held our flags at half-mast. And to see 800,000 people who are totally unconnected, not connected at all, not organized at all, to show up. And by the way, I think there were 2 Muslims who showed up. And none of us were afraid to say or call it exactly the way it was and what it was. We stood there and we just scared the hell out of these people who wanted to sully America yet again. So if you can get that many people without any planning, just because it's the right thing to do, I believe that the majority of conservatives in America are going to rise up and they're going to take their country back, and they're going to do it sooner rather than later, and all they need is a leader. And that's one of the reasons why all these primaries, the conservative primaries, are so important as well.
You're absolutely right. Howard Galganov has been my guest. GalGanov.com. GalGanov.com. You can find him on the web. His articles are most interesting, and you see a little bit of that perspective as he has been a little bit ahead of us in Canada and losing those freedoms. And what good words to us, what good challenge us to us on our primaries here in America. He's absolutely correct. This is the crucial point. For us here in Iowa, it's June 3rd. You need to be making a decision who you will support. This is the ultimate right now, your choice in your primary candidates. Don't get to November and say the lesser of 2 evils. Pick the one you like the best right now. Great advice for us from Howard. But we're going to take a break right here. We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay tuned. We thank our sponsors. We're powered by webcast1live.com.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program, or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
And good day. Thanks for staying with us. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time, giving you help when the headlines hit home. And that was Howard Galganov, if you want to go to that website. If you want to listen to the link of the Sterling comments, you can find those online, and I'll try and get them on the chat line here on the website as well. My point is not that we like anything he said. It's not that we're defending him in any way. It's that you need to be aware of what's happening here in America. It's easy to go after those who may have said something inflammatory or incredibly outrageous, but don't think they won't come after you next. I warned you a couple weeks ago about Condoleezza Rice being asked not to speak on Rutgers campus. And it's not that she was a right-wing conservative or that she's a Christian or that she's intolerant. It's that somebody just simply didn't like her views. That's what we're coming to, and that's the danger in this nation. I also let you know a couple weeks ago about, I'm going to hold on here. I'm writing it. We've not had to do this on air before, but I am. Do you have him? We're connecting with one of our other guests, and I sometimes don't send the right information to Ryan, so I'm making sure I got that clarified for Ryan, so forgive me for doing that. Anyway, Cheryl Solinger is from Operation Rescue, and we've talked to her a couple weeks ago. She was the person who simply asked for information from the Board of Medicine here in Iowa and ended up getting sued because she asked for that information. Again, another way to silence Americans. We can't believe this is happening here in America. As I already mentioned on this show, the Gortz House Gallery being sued because they simply politely declined in protection to their Mennonite employees not to do a marriage that violated their deeply held religious convictions. Do people not have that right anymore? I mean, what I'm seeing in this coming out of force against someone, Howard hit it on the head. Money will do it. If people are that appalled, money will do it. You see that happening with the hotel owner out there in California as well, as information comes out about his beliefs and his treatment of women back in his home country. It happens. Cheryl Solinger, I want to come back to this. Topeka, Kansas. Planned Parenthood quietly filed a stipulation in the Kansas District Court to dismiss its legal challenge of a 2011 state law that reallocated Title X family planning funds. This is something that many other states are doing to defund Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics. Anyway, I think they've had good reports back, and I think that they are now experiencing, let me see if I can go to that one, a good decision in Kansas. We applaud them for doing that. We're trying to do the same thing here in Iowa. We have several Iowa House members who are willing to stand on the defunding of Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, not just Planned Parenthood, but all abortion clinics. That just happens to be the largest one. And I also want to come to this other article from Life News. Warren Buffett has given $1.2 billion to pro-abortion groups, $1.2 billion to pro-abortion groups, or the funding of the RU-486 pill, or other like-minded organizations. If they take the average cost of abortion, that's 2.7 million abortions. He's effectively killed 2.7 million of his fellow citizens around the globe. Now we're talking about one man's hate because of simple words he said. No actions were with those words. We're talking about another man here whose actions, no matter what you guise them under, no matter what compassion you say that they are tainted with, his actions have caused the death of 2.7 million lives. Imagine how much better those lives would be if he'd spent that money on something productive. If he'd saved his money, not spent a dime, those people could be breathing in America and countries around the globe today. But instead he invested those funds in death. How much more hateful can you be than that? If there's any consistency here in America whatsoever, that should be the man that we stop sending our money to. That should be the man that's facing ridicule. The man who willingly, because he can, because he has the money, has funded the death of others. That to me is alarming. Absolutely alarming. Joining me now is Mychal Massie. Mychal Massie has been acknowledged as one of the most influential, and I think the title was, well, I'll let him tell you. Mychal, thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's been quite a while.
It has been a little bit of a while. I took a little bit of a break, and then I'm back now just one day a week doing other things. I could just do the 1 day a week schedule, but thank you so much. I am good to talk to you, my friend. I don't know if you heard the earlier part of the show. We're talking about the silencing of dissidents, the silencing of those we don't like anymore, the silencing of those who we either want to buy their ball team or we just want them off our block. And I was just talking about Warren Buffett investing his funds to kill 2.7 million people. Now, I had introduced you as, what was it? You were the influential person. Was it somehow, did they task you with being the influential, was it black leaders in America?
Well, what they said is that I was one of the I was one of the most influential black Republicans, in America. Actually, that's not true. They said one of the most influential African American Republicans in the country. And I said, why was it necessary for me to be a color? I said, first of all, I said, I'm not an African American, I'm an American. Secondly, there's no African that I can point to in my direct descendancy going back to my great-great-grandmother. And thirdly, why is it necessary for me to be a color, to be a conservative? I missed something in their process.
Yeah, why can't you just be influential? Period.
That's precisely my point. And one of the things is that I have fought for and continue to fight for is that we need a colorblind society, and people are programmed and conditioned. Indeed, the people that fight me the most on this subject are ministers. They are just, for whatever reason, they are refusing, in large part, to just go with Americanism. It's an African American, or they want to affix a color to it. And that's both in my own denomination and other denominations. They are the ones that have been most resistant to what should be apparent to us all. We're Americans. If we are Americans, we don't have the issues that we're having today. Cliven Bundy isn't unjustly called racist. If we are Americans, we have no minorities because we're 300 plus million. If we're Americans, there's no, black people have it this and black people have it that. And if we're Americans, Donald Sterling isn't being eviscerated as being a racist. It doesn't come into play. Color doesn't come into play, but color has been the most successful tactic that Leninists have employed, and that goes back to the early 1900s when Lenin looked across the ocean and determined that the first-generation slaves were ripe for revolution. Lenin said they were a revolutionary class people. He influenced Du Bois, and Du Bois said that they're ripe for revolution. But somehow, in the transition of history and the orchestration of history, all of that gets lost. That this whole agitprop, if you will, this whole propaganda machine with these melanin pimps and race mongers is nothing more than a tool to keep some in despair and immiseration, and to have others as their benefactors, which certainly enhances their net worth, but does nothing for those that they claim to be helping.
Mychal has degrees in education, business, real estate, theology, pastoral counseling, and he writes. Do you still write for the WorldNet Daily? I've
been nationally syndicated for, I don't know, forever. And yes, my work appears at WorldNet Daily. I now am the publisher of the Daily Rant. It's my own blog. I'm the publisher of that, and I'm very pleased. We're having the Lord has blessed us. The Lord has blessed us with success, and we continue to look forward to that.
And so, Mychal, people can find you MychalMassie.com, or is there a website for the rant?
No, it's Mychal-Massie.com.
Okay.
It's MychalMassie.com.
And so I know we're going to run out of time. I'm doing a simulcast this last segment. I have to stay on my hard break. But will you come back? And can we discuss more in the future? You know, we haven't even touched on some of these issues like what they call the knockout games, which to me is nothing more than the knockout crimes, and other issues that we're facing in this race-related topic. And I like the way you say it so well. We are just all Americans. Can we not just work together? And I've said it as well. We continue to focus on what separates us, we'll be divided. We have to come together. Mychal Massie, thank you for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure. It's good to see you, or I should say good to talk with you again. And please give my best to your family.
I will do that. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to contacting you, and we'll be in contact in the future and have you back on the show.
It's a deal. All the best.
I am Tamara Scott. We've got to go to a hard break. We're going to attempt something we've not done before on this show. We're going to do a simulcast with Reverend Jesse Peterson out of L.A., California, and he'll be doing his show at the same time I'm doing my show. So stay tuned. It could be fun.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
And good day, I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for staying with us. As we told you, we're going to be attempting a simulcast as soon as Reverend Jesse Peterson comes back from his break. He'll be joining us live on his show out of L.A., California. And my thanks to Ryan Northfield, our producer, for attempting to even try this. Let me take this little minute to thank Crave Ministries, Christians for America, the number Christians, the number 4 America, for sponsoring us. You can go on the website and do a search on them. Helping us be on the air, getting truth to you. Pastor Don Swarthout has just been a friend and a mentor and always encouraging in the ministry and the work that he's doing. Also, Danny Van Gundy is working with that ministry and talking to folks across the nation about the possibility of getting off of prescription drugs once you're addicted. Danny was delivered off of his prescription of, I think it was Oxycontin, and tells quite a testimony in that, and now helping people around the nation in that. So there is help. There is always help. We know that there's a huge number of Americans who are on prescription drugs, and so there's help available to you when you're ready to deal with that and get off of those. Joining me next is going to be Jesse Lee Peterson. He is with Bond, the Brotherhood for a New Destiny. And that organization has been very helpful, very active. He's the author of a bold and highly popular book, Scam, How Black Leadership Exploits Black America. Another book, From Rage to Responsibility. And another one, The 7 Guaranteed Steps to Spiritual, Family, and Financial Success. So we'll look forward to him joining us. And I think Ryan's waving at...
.com.
Very good. Is that Reverend Jesse Peterson?
.com about this whole situation. It wasn't about Donald Sterling's situation. It's not about race. It's about shakedown. It's a shakedown. Tamara Scott is a radio talk show host, and her show is on the same time as my show. She wanted to interview me or talk to me about this situation and other issues. So we're doing a simulcast right now, and Tamara is line here. Tamara, good morning.
Good morning, Reverend. How are you?
All is well. You can call me Jesse.
Very good. Good to hear your voice again, and my thanks to Ermias for helping us connect.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. It's good to be on with you again as well.
So we're talking about this Sterling case, and I appreciated the article you had written about it. I, for our listeners, had sent an email to you, I think May 5th, asking if you had an opinion on it. I wanted to hear what Bond's standpoint was, what the viewpoint would be coming. And so I found that you had written an article on it just 2 days ago. I'm thrilled to have that. It's on WorldNet Daily for our listeners who want to go to that, worldnetdaily.com. Sterling case is really about race hustling. Talk to our listeners about that, if you will, Jesse.
Well, when you consider the folks who went after Mr. Sterling, they're all race hustlers, starting with Barack Obama. Barack Obama commented on that situation while in Malaysia. And I think he was out of order for doing that, even though he was asked about it. He could have easily said, I have no comments. Instead, he said that America, and I don't have his quotes in front of me, but I'm paraphrasing, is still a racist society. We still have to deal with that. And this man said that on foreign soil, while at the same time he's running away from Putin like a rat running from a cat.
Well, let's also draw a correlation. I think after the first Fort Hood, what they call workplace-related violence, but it was a terrorist attack. That first Fort Hood, he was silent. And there was another one where someone drove by the recruiting office and shot 2 people outside. There was silence. He was so quiet. But this one, you're right. He jumped right on it.
Nadal Hussain there in Texas. And he also did it with Joyce Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin situation. If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. He did it again with the police officer and the professor out of Massachusetts. The police officer acted stupidly. Obama is a racist, so he spoke out because he wants to see what the things that are happening in our country and dividing the races. And then you look at Jesse Jackson, the NAACP, Al Sharpton, and the liberal media. They all went after Mr. Sterling because this is an opportunity for the shakedown artists, the race hustlers, to go after a powerful man, white man, with money and power, and they're going to take that away from him and replace him with their friends and family members. It won't do any good for regular black folks. And also, the mayor of Sacramento, California, Kevin Johnson, said, let this be a warning to all bigots. The same thing that happened to Mr. Sterling will happen to you. Now, who have they gone after? They have only gone after white folks, calling them bigots. You've never seen them go after black bigots like Sharpton, Jackson, or any of the other race hustlers.
That's an excellent point. And I had just read in an earlier segment, Warren Buffett has given $1.2 billion to abortion groups. And Jesse, you and I both know that a larger number of in the black community are targeted often where these abortion clinics are even built and opened. And we know we've lost a large proportion of our black community to abortion. So what would be the more honest attack if we're going to fight racism, if we're going to go for equality here? Shouldn't we go after a Warren Buffett who's given enough $1.2 billion to either abortion groups or the funding of the RU-486 testing pill? Roughly 2.7 million first trimester abortions have been paid for by him alone.
Isn't that amazing? And according to blackgenocide.com, over 1,800 black babies are aborted every day.
1,800.
Every day. 1,800 black babies are aborted daily, and 70% of Planned Parenthood abortion mills are located in the inner cities around the country. And it tells me that these people don't care about black people. They don't care about the lives of the unborn. They care about wealth. Warren Buffett give them money. He support them. So, meaning the so-called black leaders, it's about power and wealth. It's not about the people. That's what I want black Americans to understand. And I also want white Americans to understand that they have to stop being afraid. This thing with Donald Sterling has put the fear of God in white folks now. They were already afraid of the word racism. This really put fear in them, and it has set the race issue back 100 years. And I'm very concerned about that.
I like the other thing that you mentioned in your article. You are brave enough, and again, we're not defending what somebody said or didn't say, but you were brave enough in your article to call out some of the inconsistencies here. The LA Clippers coach, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, said he's never been discriminated against or mistreated by Sterling. In fact, Kareem said that Sterling invited him to attend his daughter's wedding, and he did. Another LA Clipper, Coutinho Mobley, appeared on Fox News and said he has been treated fairly and had no problem. We're out to just destroy one man, and whether people don't like him because he's rich, maybe he's a jerk. I don't know. But what we're seeing happen is a very dangerous precedent in this country.
It is. It is mind-blowing. Mr. Sterling has a right, if he wants to be a racist, he has a right to be a racist. If he wants to, whatever he says in his own home, he has a right to do that. No one has a right to go into this man's home and try to punish him for what he said. And he didn't say it about all black people. He was having a lover's quarrel, and he didn't like the fact that this woman was bringing her black boyfriends and these thugs and gangsters to his games or posting it on her site there and embarrassing him. It was a lover's quarrel, but they are taking this and they are calling it racist for their own personal gain. I'm telling you, it's not about racism at all. If this has been the other way around, let's say that Magic Johnson or Jay-Z, who is a racist, by the way, if they had said the same thing in the privacy of their home and the word got out, there would be nothing done or said about it at all, because these people don't go after black bigots. They only go after the white ones because they hate white folks.
Now, you brought up Jay-Z, and I have a link here, and I'll go ahead and put it in our chat line. It is from the Young Cons. I think it's Young Conservatives. Jay-Z is wearing something that is like a white person wearing a I love Ku Klux Klan shirt. It's an emblem on his gold medallion on his necklace, quite large, and it's the Seven of Allah. It's supposedly a racist part of the Islamic group. Are you familiar with that?
I am, very much so. And you haven't heard one word about that from the race hustlers, the poverty pimp, the liberal media, the five. And this guy is also a part of the so-called 5%er. He is wealthy, but yet because he's black, they don't go after him at all. This is a double standard in America. And I have to tell you, Tamara, I blame white folks for this too, because I've been warning them for the last 25 years that if they don't stand up to Jackson and Sharpton and the NAACP, it's only going to get worse. And now it is at its worst, but it's going to get worse. I mean, we haven't seen anything yet because these people have been allowed to go after Mr. Sterling. It is not over.
And that's why we're so thankful for you, because as white people, we have a hard time even saying anything without being labeled ourselves or attacked ourselves. So we're thankful for your friends and our friends in the black community or who will call truth and say truth. We had Mychal Massie on earlier as well, and he's refused to accept any award that is labeled with a color coding on it. He was given an award as a influential colored Republican or black Republican. And he said, why do you have to put the color coding on it? So I think we're moving together. I wanted to ask you too, and I know you need to take a break. I want to be respectful of that. But
we're going to hold a break. We're not going to do them.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask you, I just had the biggest blessing to spend time with Alveda King, and I can hardly talk about it without getting emotional. Her heart, her love for her fellow her fellow American, her fellow human. No bitterness there whatsoever, even though her family has been through great tragedy. Talk to us, Jesse, as a pastor, however you want to handle it. As Christians, Kim Ham talks about one blood. The racism does not come from the Christian. In fact, it was the Christian perspective that really helped us through the Civil War, that helped us stop the slavery. Talk to us about that if you can.
You know, the thing that I've come to realize that if we're truly born of the Spirit of God, we start to see things in a different manner. We realize that our battle is a spiritual battle between good and evil, right versus wrong. It's not a battle between men and women, black or white. And also, if we truly love God, we will join together as brothers and sisters of God, and we will stand against the brothers and sisters of evil, never mind the color. We would love one another, support one another. But I'm starting to believe that a lot of Christians believe about God. They've heard about him. It's like hearing about Martin Luther King Jr., but that's not going to do anything but make you feel good. And we need folks who are of God, who knows him, who has a personal relationship with him, to start standing up and fighting against evil, and realize that the people who call you names, which are the children of the Prince of Darkness, they don't have power. They only have words to intimidate you. And if you allow words to roll off your back, then they have nothing to control you with. They need to, they need to realize that we have the power. We have the Holy Spirit. We have the power of God working through us. And if you know him, if you have that relationship with him, then there's nothing on earth that can stop you. And we need to come back to that.
And what do we say to those people out there in America? I see it when I speak. You probably see it too. There'll be a sign held up, "Keep your religion, out of my government." And I just have to laugh from the podium and say, apparently you don't know your government very well, because it was founded off the basic tenets of my religion, Christianity.
That's right. I would educate them about that. And I would not worry about what they say about that. I would insist on electing men and women who support the Constitution, who believes in the Scriptures, who love God with all their heart, soul, and might, because that's what made the country so great, is that these people believed in God. And so I would not cave into the children of the world.
Absolutely. And so for those of us, we have issues in the Republican Party. We are now reaching out. We're working with black pastors across the nation, not to isolate people, certainly not to segment people into groups, but to reach out and remind people of what the Republican Party has done. Abraham Lincoln being the first presidential candidate.
I'm sorry, I have to let my audience go. Thank you so much, folks.
Well, thank you for joining us on Webcast One Live. Webcast One Live, if folks want to hear the whole podcast, they can tune into Tamara Scott Live and get that. Thank you, Jesse Peterson. Well, we've had to say goodbye to Jesse. We've got just a minute or two left with you, and I thank you for this adventure today. You can do those rides. Was it Parenthood, the movie, where she talked about the roller coaster was up and down, and some folks preferred the merry-go-round that just went round in circles. We did the roller coaster today, and I think we did it pretty well. Thank you, Ryan, for your help on that. That was fun joining with Jesse Peterson, and I hope you understand. No matter what the covering on the outside looks like, no matter what the label that's been pinned on any of us may read, what matters is the life we lead, what we do, what we say, what we believe. And if we can get past those labels, I don't like pitting people in groups. Our power doesn't come from groups. It comes from each of us as individuals. God has empowered each one of us as individuals, endowed by our Creator, inalienable rights. When we put it in groups, then that power comes from the group, and we lose that individual power. You heard Howard Galganov say, you have the power in your dollar. Either don't go to those games, don't support that team, don't buy the shirts. That will create more peer pressure, more weight than any law, than any of this public ridicule. That has to stop. But we have the power within ourselves to stand with like-minded people And I think it's time across America that we quit pointing the finger at each other and start extending a hand toward each other in friendship, in liberty, in fighting for the freedoms and liberties that made this country strong. It's that important, it's that critical, that we no longer allow somebody else to pit us against each other. We'll not ever come together if we focus on our differences all the time. We can rejoice in those things that are unique to each of us as God created us. But we can come together and protect those liberties and freedoms that have made America this nation, this beacon on a hill that you heard our guest mention today. We are out of time. I thank you for joining us. You can get any of our shows at Tamara Scott Live on YouTube. And if you want to learn more about this show, you can email truthforourtime@gmail.com. You've been challenged. I hope you'll be encouraged, but never be complacent.